All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I got 9:01 on my clock. My name is Andy Sokolovich. I am the Vice President of Economic Development here at the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. We serve a bi-state region to include several communities over in Illinois and Iowa. I'm excited today to be joined by the Superintendent of Schools, both Gary DeLacy from Clinton Community School District, Tom Parker from Camanche Community School District, and Darryl Hogue from Riverbend over in Fulton across the river in Illinois. So today's been a very popular turnout. We had a lot of people register for this event, so people want to know what you have to say. So what I'll do, because I'm just going to get it right out of the gate, I'm not going to mess around. COVID, right? We're talking about in-person class versus virtual education. Gary and I were talking about this a little bit before we started the broadcast, and I'll turn over to Gary because he's got the larger district, and then we'll go around the horn. So Gary, what are you looking at from a COVID-19 response and your response to Governor Reynolds here in Iowa?
Well, first of all, our premise through this whole return to learn plan has been in terms of we want to educate as many students in person, but still meet the Iowa Department of Public Health and CDC guidelines. And the biggest things you hear from the Iowa Department of Public Health is social distancing, required face coverings, sanitation routines. And so we've been, for the most part, all year doing a hybrid model with grades 6 through 12. And then we actually have moved all of our fifth graders and part of our fourth graders into the middle school and high school to create social distancing. We've also hired a number of teachers long-term, or we've moved teacher leaders into the classroom. So if you walk through any of our classrooms today, you're going to see probably an average class size of about 15 in our district, which teachers are loving that piece of it. I mean, just to give you an idea, probably the average class size non-pandemic would be around 25. So a pretty significant difference. I do think it's a game changer when we get a chance here to be vaccinated. And what I'm hearing is the week of February 1st through the 5th, that there will be an opportunity for our staff to be vaccinated. We've done a survey. We have 473 employees that have opted to be vaccinated. And we're in the process of trying to get a date and the logistics lined up to make that happen. Then if you get that second dose in early March, I was actually planning that once we had that opportunity to be vaccinated, and let's say that the current trend is reasonable, I would be looking at going in-person learning after spring break. Making that transition at the time. Our district would need some time to transition because I have moved all these fourth and fifth graders, but you think about the domino effects. I've displaced a number of middle school and high school teachers out of their parts of the building in this process. And even in the elementary level, we've subdivided. So some of those fourth and fifth grade classrooms might have a first or second grade classroom in there right now because we've subdivided and really spread the kids out. So my reaction to the governor is, yeah, I would like to get all kids in as well. I just like that opportunity that my staff to get vaccinated first and get that taken care of. And now that we see that's on the horizon, I would like to see that opportunity happen. Just to get, when you look at some of my employee groups, particularly I'm going to just throw out bus drivers and food service, a lot of them are at that high at-risk group. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things, domino effect of what we did with hybrid is the people in the buses, we don't have as many kids on the buses. So we've even done some social distancing things in transportation or at lunch and food service, trying to recognize those at-risk populations that we employ. And again, I feel like if we can get them vaccinated, I just feel that's a layer of protection I would like to get in place. Then I think we can get to the point of bringing everybody back. Because the one thing that isn't talked about, when you bring everybody back in person, you are going to lose social distancing. You're basically saying the social distancing piece is going to not be part of it anymore. So that's where I'm at right now. I would love to get my staff vaccinated before we make that step.
Thanks, Gary. Tom Parker, Superintendent of Schools, Camanche Community School District. What's going on in your world?
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone, and thanks for the intro, Andy. I would just say I listened to Gary's response, and I would echo much of what Gary was saying. Specific to Camanche, though, we also are following a hybrid plan. Our elementary students have been going to school every day, but socially distanced and in smaller pods of students instead of classrooms that you would typically see with 20 or more students in them. We also, at the secondary level, follow a hybrid plan where, in essence, our students were coming to school 50% of the time, and probably the simplest explanation would be on a rotating schedule. So that has allowed us to socially distance at the secondary level. Again, I'd be echoing a lot of what Gary said as far as the specifics. I would just say in general, our plan has always been to try to get our students in a position where they have as much contact with their teacher as possible, but we also want to have as safe of an environment as possible, and we think the hybrid plan allowed us to do that. As far as what the future holds and what the governor is talking about, I think everyone is in agreement that the most effective education for most kids is face-to-face with their teacher, and getting everyone back full-time is certainly the goal. The big thing we will want to do is make sure we can do that safely, and our hope is that vaccination truly is the game changer, which allows us to look at doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to say kudos to you guys. I don't envy your position. You've had to be very adaptable and flexible and responsive. You've done a tremendous job. Now we'll turn it over to Darryl Hogue, superintendent over at Riverbend in Fulton, Illinois. Governor Pritzker has some different outlooks on things. You've had to adapt to different tier levels. So I never really understood the importance of education in a bi-state region and really how that river defines what each district does. So you're over on the Illinois side. What's your world look like?
Well, we started off not knowing, sort of what things look like. Watched the metrics very closely. We started off the year with our high school remote, started only remote for about a month because we had some specific cases in the school. We didn't know how to manage it. We didn't know how it would look. And so felt it was the safest thing to do to start remote for the high school. Our K-8 started hybrid. About a month into this, we learned a lot. We started to bring our high school back to a hybrid. We had everybody hybrid for, about a week or two. And then we started slowly, gradually bringing all grades and all grade levels back. Our elementary building, like Gary said, really our entire district is driven by the protocols. And so those are important to keep in place and keep in mind. And can we do those things with all our students as we began to plan and look, and we felt we could. Our elementary shifted staff positions, and we brought in a staff person so that we had, under 20 in each classroom. They were able to spread out, and we felt like we could bring them safely back every day. So throughout mid-October to mid-November, we worked to bring everybody back on site 4 days a week. We always had a remote day, and then in late November, we went to 5 days a week versus 4 days a week. So the only folks that are doing remote learning right now are those families that choose to do remote. We have about 900 students, and about 80, anywhere between 80 and 100 families are remote. Our school day is a little shorter. It is roughly 8 to 1:15. Teachers work with those remote families from that 1:15 to 3 o'clock time. We also bring in students who have been struggling. I mean, each of the superintendents, this might be one of our topics, one of the impacts of, especially in Illinois, unlike Iowa, we are not able to do after school extracurricular activities. So we haven't had sports in a long time, and that's a really negative impact on our students. A lot of times sports supply that little extra oomph to stay on top of things. You know, I'm committed to a team, committed to a sport, got to keep my grades up. Those are dynamics that really have intricate impact on each other. And we've seen that the loss of sports really has produced some really tough academic situations. We've had more students with D's and F's than we ever have. We've had to work really hard to help those students overcome those barriers. And let's face it, remote learning isn't the same as in-person learning. So like Tom and Gary, we're doing everything we can. And we even allow families to kind of flex, meaning if you've committed to a remote site and you want to come back to on-site learning, we're open to doing that. What we don't want, I mean, again, we can't tell a family once you've committed to on-site, you have to stay that way. Again, families have to do what are best for families, and we're going to do, you know, the absolute. We're going to be the most flexible we can with helping them. We are starting to do some practicing, and low-risk sports are, again, everything's sort of classified in Illinois. Sports are considered high risk, low risk, and medium risk. Basketball, unfortunately, is a high risk sport, so that can only be done at this point in tier 1 with practices. Contests can't begin until it changes to a different risk level, or we have full open activities in Illinois. So we're starting to do some practicing. We're hoping volleyball might be able to kick off soon. We're waiting for the IHSA to see if they're going to change the dates of the season. Football was scheduled to be a spring sport. We're looking at that. You know, where does, you know, having seen that done in Iowa and other places around the country safely, I'm hoping we can get to that as well. We're just waiting for the IHSA to kind of deliver the news of what the season shuffle will look like, and we'll get ready to adapt. We started our middle school activities that we were allowed to do, and kids are eager to do something.
Right.
So living next to Iowa is both, you know, it's rewarding and it's a challenge at times. A lot of Illinois kids, and kudos to Iowa organizations that are offering sports to kids, go over to Iowa and compete. Again, we've learned a lot from what we've been able to watch them do. So
yeah,
thanks, guys.
Thank you. So my next question is for you, Tom. I apologize to Darryl because I'm a little bit ignorant to the school funding formula in Illinois, but here in Iowa, you know, it's been reported that we're about down 6,000 in-class students, and that affects your enrollment and ultimately affects the way that you budget. So how are you planning budgeting moving forward, knowing that there's probably students out there who are not coming to school due to the pandemic, but maybe will enroll later in the year?
Well, in Iowa, you're right. The funding for school districts is dependent upon student count. And our enrollments overall as a state have been down. What you hear is most of those people probably haven't left. They just chose to not have their students attend school because of the pandemic. So that remains to be seen. But back to the financial component, and directly getting funding from the state. As superintendents, I think across the state, we've really been trying to stress to our representatives, our legislators, that school funding is very important as far as having the resources to put behind educating our students. When we ended up with the pandemic and basically last spring, not having class for some students months until we got going in the fall, we're really concerned about in essence, the learning gap that was created by that. You know I'm specifically concerned about reading, especially when you're talking about some of our youngest students in first or second grade, where reading is initially and formally taught at that time. When you move along the spectrum of grades, mathematics, especially as you move into middle school, where you get into the beginnings and introductions of some of the more complex mathematic processes. So there's a lot out there that I'm concerned about with the gaps. And bottom line, you do need the financial resources to begin to address that, whether that's additional teacher-student contact time. All of that is very important. Not wanting to go on at great length about, this specifically, I'll try to narrow down my thoughts to, well, how do you get the funding? Of course, the main component would be the funding that comes from the state based upon student count. And when you hear about percentages that superintendents and other educators talk about with legislators, that's what we're talking about. Short term, if we did end up with an influx of students, in Iowa we do have an option called the budget guarantee, which allows us to maintain 101% of our current funding for a year, which does provide a safety net, if you will. But the thing to be aware of when a school district is in a position of needing to invoke the budget guarantee, that cost is borne specifically by that school district's property taxpayers. So, it is a much better situation for everyone if the state can provide that initial source of funding. So perhaps I'll stop there, and I'm sure Gary will have some insights about things, and Darryl also.
Gary?
We're at that time of the year. The governor gave her speech, so you're within 30 days. They're supposed to set SSA. Right now, the governor proposed 2.5%. The average over the last 11 years has been 1.8%, so it's been pretty suppressed. There is an opportunity to do better than 2.5% by what Tom had mentioned. There's a $42 million savings for the district or for the state right now because of those 6,000 students that aren't on the books but are around. I really do believe we're going to have a bubble of kindergartners next year. The reason is 4 and 5 year olds aren't required in the state of Iowa to be in school. So I do believe that the majority of those 6,000 students are 4 and 5 year olds where the parents elected due to the pandemic to say, we're going to wait this out. And what's going to happen is they're going to show up at our doors next fall. And I do think we're going to have a bumper crop of kindergartners because some of them should be in first grade, but they chose not to come to school this year. So we have smaller kindergartens across the state right now, but then these kids are going to show up and we're going to have what I'm projecting, we're going to have probably at least 2 extra sections of kindergarten in our district next year on that. So
which
I think
follows through all the way through 12th grade, right? It's just not a concern about kindergarten.
That domino effect that
right.
We're going to have this bubble that's going to be going through on that. So, I think I saw Chris Canoyer is on here. We've discussed this already. I think she's aware of it. I'm hopeful that the legislature takes a look at that. Now, for Clinton, we actually ended up 28 students overall. But I'm going to tell you right now, we were down 80 students from what we would typically have in kindergarten and pre-K. So, I see us having that bubble going into next year as well. My biggest thing is because SSA has been suppressed at 1.8% average over the last 11 years, we are struggling to be competitive in the private sector with a number of our employee groups, such as custodians, secretaries, paraeducators, bus drivers, where I feel like we've actually got to have a little bit of an influx so that we can be more competitive with the private sector when we're competing for those employee groups. We currently have, I think, 17 paraeducator openings in our district today that are advertised and we can't get anybody to apply. And some of it is you can make more money at Walmart.
Right.
And so we're getting into that dilemma. Same thing with a bus driver. They could maybe go to the city MTA and make more money than what we're offering. So that's becoming a major concern for me, especially in these classified employee areas. We've got to be able to fund them better so we can at least compete against the private sector. with them. So hopefully we'll be working with legislators and seeing if we can move that up a little bit. One other thing I picked up is because the 2.5% right now, and Tom mentioned the budget guarantee, $25.9 million would be actually levied against that budget guarantee across the state, and that is 100% on local property taxpayers. Yeah. So the higher SSA would go, you'd have more districts not qualifying for the budget guarantee, which is actually property tax relief by doing that. So we'll be talking to legislators on that.
Gary, for those of us that don't speak, and I'll steal Tom Parker's phrase, educationese, SSA is what?
SSA is supplemental state aid, and what they do is they work it out per student. So right now, approximately, and there's about $7,000 per student in the state of Iowa. So if we're talking 2.5%, they're going to increase that 7,000 by 2.5%. So I think right now they're talking about $176 more per student. Bottom line is, though, most of that funding this year in the governor's proposal is that $42 million worth of savings because these 6,000 students aren't on the rolls. That's what's funding most of that increase. So, and I do think these students are going to show up on our doors next August.
Yeah,
so
no
we're going to have that discussion. What the governor proposes is just a starting point, and then we work through with legislators. But I know in the next 2 to 3 weeks, they'll be finalizing their plan. So I'll be interested in talking to our local legislators and see what their ideas are.
Darryl, any budgetary confinements in your neck of the woods over there in Illinois? What are you planning for moving forward?
So, yeah, it's interesting how different the formulas are for each state. Illinois went to something called an evidence-based funding formula, and based on that formula, schools are provided so much state. Our rough breakdown is about 60-40. 60% of our revenue comes from the local taxing bodies and our levy, and 40% comes from state or feds. And so for us right now, our EAV, which determines your levy, has been on a slight increase, so that's a good thing. The biggest question in Illinois, if you follow Illinois politics, Illinois issues, we have a governor who wanted to restructure state income taxes. That didn't happen. And so his warning was, anticipate 5 to 10% reduction across the board in state funding. We don't know what that means yet. We haven't seen a budget proposal. One is supposed to come out mid to late February from the governor. That might begin to tip our hands on what might happen. I will say we've been fortunate that the federal government and the COVID relief packages have helped with some of the craziness that's kind of come to us through the purchasing of PPE, reduced class sizes, all those things. We've been given some funds to help reduce that impact, and that's been beneficial. We're waiting to see sort of what those dollars for sure look like, but so it's kind of a question mark in Illinois. What exactly will the government's budget proposal be, and how much of a reduction would there be? And again, then it becomes local decisions about, what do we do? Do we use reserves and try and hang on to our staff, or what we are currently doing, or do we have to adjust? Those things are unknowns at this point.
Yeah. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about workforce development, specifically in K-12. You can drive around the Tri-City area to include Camanche, Clinton, and Fulton. Look up and see billboards of now hiring. You can listen to our local radio stations and hear radio spots of now hiring, specifically in the manufacturing and healthcare sectors. So as we do maybe realize an influx of kindergartners and that domino effect takes them all the way through their senior year, what programs are being offered to ensure that these students have the opportunity to receive that career and technical education that they need and is so importantly needed here in the greater Clinton region to support our employers? I'll throw that question to you, Gary DeLacy.
Well, thanks for throwing that fastball right down the middle of the plate, Andy. We are on the cusp. I know on January 13th, so just a little over a week ago, Eastern Iowa Community College board approved of moving ahead with a bond referendum. What that would mean for Clinton County is they're going to build a main career and technical center on the Clinton campus. It'll either be on the parking lot across from the campus, or they're talking the east side of the rugby field where they would do that. They wanted a commitment from the local school districts, and it's kind of become an east side, west side, because they're also talking about a satellite campus in DeWitt. So the eastern school districts, which would be Clinton, Northeast, Camanche, and Easton Valley, have all committed students towards the Clinton campus. And we've asked for 9 different pathways: advanced manufacturing, welding, healthcare industries, agriculture, culinary, education, a couple other ones, Tom, you can help me with. So that bond issue will actually be on March 2nd. And if that would pass, I think the fall of 2023, we would actually have that facility ready to open. But the work for the school districts would have to happen before that. That means we would have to ensure that any junior or senior stepping in there would have the necessary background and things. So we were just talking, that means next year's freshmen would actually need to be actually getting into what I would call these career pathways, at least getting the background information to get there. The design of it's meant to be flexible. And so even though we're starting with 9 career pathways, that could really, with the advisory group, and we got a number of people that are on this call, there will need to be an advisory group of business leaders and things to say, what are the workforce needs and things, and how does that shift? I think the primary focus is that these are going to be situations where if a kid starts as a junior or senior, then by the time they finish high school, they may have 1 year or 18 months, maybe up to 2 years to get their credential or what they would need, and then to be able to move in to a lot of these shortage areas that we're experiencing in Clinton County. So there's an opportunity for Clinton Community College to really expand what they offer and be more direct in what they're providing with career and technical education. One of the things I'm gonna push out, one of the areas that we were pushing, and that's not on that list of 9 right now, but when we visited with business leaders maybe 2 years ago, was transportation and logistics. That was a major area, and that's an area that we're going to need your help on to get that programming into the Clinton facility. If that is really a shortage area, and that's something that we would see as a benefit to the workforce of Clinton County, that gets added as well. So I'm excited that the Eastern Iowa or Eastern Clinton school districts came together. We worked hard with, Tom was part of that. We've made a commitment. I think it is what's best for kids. I'm hopeful that we'll do a good job of communicating over the next basically 5 weeks before the referendum and get the word out there, and we can pass this and provide an opportunity for kids. And I know Darryl's listening to this, and we were just talking before here about the apprenticeship program, but this may be some more enhanced opportunities for Fulton kids to get career and technical education without going over to Sterling. So,
yeah.
So I'm excited. Yeah. We're on the cusp. The next thing is we need a favorable vote on March 2nd.
Yeah, again, March 2nd, bond referendums to be issued throughout Eastern Iowa Community College to include all the counties they serve. And again, that referendum will pass by a majority. And just based on those voters that turn out, historically, referendums issued by a community college don't have, like, I believe it's single percentage or single digit percentages that actually turn out. But this is something we've been fighting for a long time throughout the greater Clinton region. And Tom Parker, you've been an advocate and really at the tip of the spear in ensuring that this comes through to fruition. What is your opinion regarding workforce development, specifically in K through 12, and the opportunities that we could possibly receive following a bond referendum on March 2nd?
Well, yes, first, just given the audience of this broadcast, I would just say support from our business community is very important, not only for the bond referendum, but when we start talking about the type of programming we could offer our students. Gary did a very good job as far as outlining what specifically is there. So I guess I'd talk a little more philosophically about things. A big motivator in this would be providing our students, our regional students, the kids that are literally growing up, our next door neighbors, with an equitable opportunity to get vocational training if that's the direction they want to go. If you look at our current situation, to receive the type of training we would like to see, a student would have to travel down to Davenport to the Blong Center, or even as far as Cedar Rapids to Kirkwood for those on the western end of the county. And, really, as you started to take a look around the state of Iowa, we really started to look at, well, what opportunities do children coming through our educational system have if a four-year college isn't the option they're going to pursue, but rather they're looking for a skilled trade or some type of skill set to fit into the workforce here in the region. We really see this Career and Technical Education Center and initiative, really it's more of an initiative as far as the programming along with the physical facilities, as creating a more equitable opportunity for a child growing up in our region to receive the educational opportunities in vocational areas that they need. There's no reason why a student growing or a child growing up in our area should not have the same opportunities as a child growing up somewhere else in the state of Iowa. And, I think this bond referendum goes a long ways in supporting that.
I appreciate that, Tom. I agree with everything you're saying. Darryl, when you're positioned in Fulton, you're still a little bit more than a stone's throw away from Sauk Valley Community College. You're a little bit too far away from the Blong Center of Technology down in Davenport. So something like a Career Technical Education Center right here in Clinton, within Clinton County, would benefit your students, correct? You're muted, sir.
If we're allowed to attend.
And what does that mean? So talk to us a little bit about the logistics. And this is where I get extremely frustrated as a workforce development professional, is that river really stops education dollars from flowing across its boundary. And that is extremely frustrating.
So there's a lot of complexities here in this one. Right now, our students go to the White City Area Career Center. We've had a great relationship with them. Superintendents that attend are on the board of directors there. We would consider, if this option opened up for us, and we'd have to measure the impact of what it would mean to not go to the Whiteside Area Career Center. Again, those are all speculative sort of things. The state of Iowa would have to approve Illinois students, accessing those resources. We aren't paying any taxes over there. There aren't any, again, none of our funding goes towards that school. So I would understand why there would be some challenges there. There would be no fees. Now, if it were in a dual credit Eastern Iowa Community College class, that's a different story, and those students would be able to do that. Again, like I said, we work closely with the Career Center. We're trying to expand their reach, what they might do remotely. The one thing the pandemic has shown us is that there are some really good opportunities for us to access other educational endeavors remotely, and those might be some of those opportunities exist. Again, if it's a dual credit program, we would be able to participate. If not, that might be a little trickier because, again, Iowa, and you guys are going to want to serve your students in those communities first and foremost, and I totally understand that. But again, we always love to look at opportunities for kids, and so we'll break that down. Just as a side note, Andy and I were talking about this, and as I understand it, again, I could be wrong, the tax and how your vote works and what people are voting for, you are kind of using a tax base you already have, and so there would be no real tax increase, but you're reusing the funds you have now, which is a good money management. I hope you guys can promote that. That's always been a benefit when we have to sell bonds. If we can keep our tax rate flat, use money we've already been using, our constituents like that.
Yeah, I want to jump on that. I was going to mention that Eastern Iowa Community College does have a bond that's going off the books. And so what's being proposed would basically bookend, and it's the same amount of money. So people would really not see an increase in their taxes on this. And then just the idea that it's over basically a 5-county area, we're talking 25 cents per thousand to get this. It's 40 million across the 5 counties. Just in comparison, we were able to get a Clinton High School bond issue through for $2.70 per thousand, and that generated 38.9 million. So just given the capacity and obviously the population density of Scott County, realistically, Scott County will be paying for a lot of this just by population density. So it could be a win-win-win for us if it passes.
Well, there's no doubt that this is something that we desperately need. And I think for those business leaders and representatives of large industry, construction, healthcare that are on the call today, I don't know if many of you realize the impact you have in the K-12 planning. So I encourage you, I almost charge you with the initiative to get out there, not only and vote for this bond referendum on March 2nd, but engage the superintendents, Tom, Gary, Darryl. They're all open, and they're really open to feedback and always taking suggestions, because you really drive the curriculum and the plan that we're putting in place today to ensure that we have the workforce to support your organizations tomorrow. So do vote on March 2nd for that referendum. Again, bond referendum falling off the tax rolls, no increase to your property taxes. It's going to support the region, so get out there and vote. All right, guys, I got 9:38 on my clock. We try to keep this under an hour. What I'm going to do now is pitch it to you and say, what is your 2021 outlook? If you had that crystal ball and you looked at education K through 12 moving forward, what are you excited about? What are you nervous about? And what can we do to support your efforts here in the greater Clinton region? I'll kick it off to Darryl first.
2021 outlook. Our funding comes through as planned. We get the vaccinations. It's kind of funny as this is going on, we are all multitasking. We're getting information that there are more clinics being available, so getting vaccines out, getting our kids back to full activities, that's really important. Looking forward to that. And I'm really excited again. We've been doing some things behind the scenes with our community, with our chambers. I think the light is at the end of the tunnel. I think people are going to be excited and are going to enjoy participating in getting out and doing more things. I want to see 2021. I want to see kids. I'm really curious how the vaccination is going to work for people under the age of 18 or 16, whatever it is. So I'm hopeful there. But again, so far, kids haven't really been spreading this stuff, so that's a good thing too. So if the adults are vaccinated, we might have a lot lower impact. The other thing I'm excited about, as I alluded to earlier, is we've done a lot of things differently in education, and I hope that some of these changes can stick for the benefit of the kids. Scheduling, flexibility, we've been challenged as an educational industry, and we have some new ways of doing business. So I'm hopeful that that will improve education delivery.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tom Parker.
Yes, I would say I'm optimistic as we head into our current 2021 year now. The pandemic has certainly created a very stressful situation for a number of people, and it's very understandable. But I would like to think we have learned some lessons from the pandemic. My hope is we can take the positive lessons and project those into the future. And I thought Darryl did a nice job of describing how that could impact education in the future. I'm really curious to see what our new normal will be. I do believe the vaccination has great potential to be a game changer for us. And as we head into our future now, I do truly hope we're able to build upon the positive things we've discovered during the pandemic and have a positive impact on education. And I hope in the future we're better prepared for an emergency like this. And, again, I think as people have an opportunity to reflect on this, and really as we look to what our new normal is, I've always believed, America, after coming through a crisis, has always made herself much stronger. And I really believe that. I'm, again, a glass half full type of guy. Yes, the pandemic has had some terrible consequences, but if we're truly able to learn some lessons from this and build upon the positives we've been forced to develop, I do think our new normal can certainly make us better in the long run. So I guess that would be my thought.
Thanks, Tom. If anything, I have 2 small school-age children, and they're adaptable. I don't know if we give kids enough credit. They've responded to this probably better than most adults have. So kudos to those children out there that have been able to work from home successfully or integrate back into in-person successfully. Gary, what's your outlook for 2021 in Clinton School District?
Well, I would echo some of the things that Darryl and Tom said. That I'm hope one of the things is I think the current pandemic has shifted some of the responsibility of learning to the students, particularly on the hybrid or if they had to be online. And some students have really flourished with this and have accepted that responsibility. And they're going to be better future employers because they do have a skill set to that. So I'm hoping that we are able to utilize that piece. I think the real excitement for Clinton Community Schools, we had talked about this regional center possibility, but then also we're about done with the design phase of the new Clinton High School. And one of the things that has been a focus in listening to a lot of you is I don't want this to have a feel of a school. I want it to have a feel of a workplace, maybe a little bit of a combination of what you would say a community college with a workplace environment, with flexibility, with not so much the ringing bells and you're in this content area, that we do more cross-curricular, real life learning, those kinds of things. And I'm excited by the opportunity to design a building for probably at least the next 50 plus years for the city of Clinton, that we design something that really does represent 21st century learning and get away from, I think, what all of us visualize, well, this is what we experience for school. I think we're beyond that now. I think we really need to be thinking about designing a building that's much more contemporary and meets workforce needs and teaches skills instead of, okay, you're going to go to math for 45 minutes and you're going to go to language arts for 45 minutes and you're rotating between classes and you got ringing bells. And I just feel like we've got to get beyond that point because they leave that environment at age 18 and then they don't see it again. So I just don't think education has really evolved. I love it when I get spam calls. But I think there's a great opportunity for our district in this town that we can provide a high school setting that doesn't feel like school. So that to me is going to be the real excitement of the next few years, is developing that. And then hopefully we come up with a product that is you out there in with the business and organizations can walk in and say, hey, this could be a great feeder program in terms of skills and bringing young people up to what we need as they enter the workforce.
Perfect. The last 15 minutes of this broadcast, I do like to open it up for questions. So I'll just give you a quick heads up. You can type in the chat room. You can also click on the little raise your hand button here in Microsoft Teams. I will give a shameless plug to the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. We are a 501c4 nonprofit organization, and we budget annually based on investment dollars that we receive from both the public and the private sector. So if you're interested in learning more how you can become involved in the Clinton Regional Development Corporation and help us grow our future workforce, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. You guys all have both my cell phone, office phone, email address. I love to be able to speak to you guys regarding investment in the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. So if there are any questions, feel free to type it in the chat or just go ahead and unmute yourself and you can direct it towards Tom, Gary, or Darryl. Any questions out there? All right.
It's Hearing Fortures with
Oh,
LyondellBasell. I just wanted to take the opportunity from a LyondellBasell perspective and really thank our educators and our schools for everything that you guys are doing and getting through this extremely difficult time. You know, we are in a different boat, but we are certainly navigating through this uncertainty as well. We are essential manufacturers, as you guys know, so we've continued to run and we've continued to operate during this time frame safely. So just kudos to you guys. You know, from a business perspective, we want to work with you guys hand in hand from a workforce development perspective. That benefits us too at LyondellBasell. There's an end game there for us too. So let's continue conversations. Let's take these further and to make sure that we're supporting one another because we too have an invested interest in this community. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Megan. Erin Cole, the President and CEO of the Clinton Regional Development Corporation.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm curious to know for Tom, obviously Darryl and Gary, if there's any way that you can survey, especially high school students, as they're moving through high school and have just a few years now to figure out what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. Do you survey them at all regarding workforce development or what types of jobs they're interested in, just to have some sense of what their current thinking is, which would also help us sort of influence their thinking moving forward? Again, if you see a majority of students who are thinking that they're going to go on to a four-year college program versus, those who want to get into manufacturing or something else, that it would, I think, just be helpful to have some kind of survey like that would help all of us just get a feel for what the thinking is, so that obviously as we try to influence that thinking over the next couple of years or actually create new programming for them, it'd be nice to have a basis in fact to start with.
Well, Erin, in Iowa, we do have what they call a four-year plan, which they develop in 8th grade. And then that's updated yearly in terms of what are their goals, and then to make sure that they're taking the coursework at the high school level to support that as they move forward. I actually see what we really need to do is we need to do a better job of counseling kids. And I think that's going to be one of the key pieces of this CTE center. When I went up to Jones County, they actually had a career counselor there that worked with all the school districts that were being served there, and working with kids, going out to the schools and actually talking about the possibilities of career pathways. I truly believe probably 80% or more kids, even at juniors and seniors in high school, truly don't know what they want to do yet. But they don't know what they don't know. And I don't think we do a very good job of explaining the options and the possibilities and just the permission to explore. particularly that junior, senior year, why don't you go this pathway? Now that doesn't, you may find out you don't want to do that. Well, that can be as good of a lesson as well before you're paying college tuition to do some of those things. So I think it's going to be more about counseling and providing permission to try some of these things. And it's hard for me to say. I'm a product of I'm beyond a 4-year school, so I've got it ingrained in my DNA. Well, you've got to go to a 4-year college, and of course you'll point at me and say, well, what did your 3 daughters do? Well, guess what? They're all 4-year college graduates or beyond. So yeah, that was a premise there. But do I feel that for a lot of our students that 1 year or 18 months beyond high school and then being able to move into the workforce and do really good job, have those jobs that we're begging for, and they can support themselves and their families? Yeah. But I really think it is going to come down to, we got to do a better job with those 4-year plans, and we got to do a better job of counseling and allowing opportunities for kids to explore.
Thanks, Gary. Darryl, Tom?
Working on it, no problem. All right. Bye.
So Aaron, go ahead, Tom.
We'll go ahead, Tom.
Okay, Tom. Stick with Iowa, then come to Illinois.
Okay. I was just going to add, on more the local level, I think anything we can do to make our students more aware of what the career opportunities are in our region is very beneficial. And I really would like to see us work more on coordinating with business leaders as far as getting that information to our kids. A great example of this was a video produced, I think it was by you, Andy, a couple years ago, which the theme was, here's what's made in the Clinton area. And I really enjoyed viewing that. And I just wonder if there's more of that sort of thing we can do to create an awareness for our students as far as here are employment opportunities available in the Clinton region, and here is the skill set you need to work at that type of an occupation or to be in that type of career. So I do appreciate the initial efforts made along those lines, but I would really be interested in ways to see that grow.
No doubt. That was a fun video to make, and it was amazing to sit down with a group of 8th graders and ask them what's made in the greater Clinton region, and all they could say was corn and dog food, right? And we were able to open up the floodgates and just kind of jam down all these careers that they would be eligible for in a post-secondary world, either a 2-year degree, 4-year degree, or a certificate. Darryl, I know you're laser focused on workforce. What's your response?
So Aaron, we have a career pathway plan as well that kids take these surveys. We have that data. I think your point is excellent, and that data needs to be shared with you guys and with employers. Success is about communication, and for each of us, the more we can do stuff like this, the more we can engage, the more we can help one another reach our end goals. And that is us, we are the intermediary. We have the supply of potential employees that employers are looking for, and we want to do the very best we can to get those employees ready for the employers. And so, again, Andy, CRDC, those that, the chambers, more of these opportunities, these educational business summits take time, take energy, take commitment, but they are super important. And again, what you're asking for, each of us have this information. Our career counselors have it. We meet with kids. We talk to kids. We have a program, and I love the program. We have a community involvement where kids do work-based learning. Our seniors do work-based learning activities, so they get a chance to partner with employers in the area and learn about a career, learn about what it takes to do the career, college commitment, the timing of it. And it's by far probably one of my favorite opportunity, because kids are taking what they're learning and they're matching it to what they need to learn, and are preparing and getting a chance. I think experience is one of the best teachers there are. And so the more experiences we can get and more employers that are willing to let us do this, the better off for the kids.
No doubt. Well put, Darryl. So I will close this out with a couple plugs for a couple programs that we offer. One is Clinton Community School District now offers a welding apprenticeship program in partnership with the Department of Labor. We currently have one student who's enrolled in that program. That student is working over at JT Cullen part-time, finishing up his apprenticeship. So that was a program we worked really hard to launch, but we need business support. So if you have a need for a welding apprentice, please let us know, because we have a lot of kids chomping at the bit to get enrolled in that program, but we need business support in order to facilitate the continued training. I know Darryl's working with Gary, trying to figure out how he could take students from his district and move them over to Clinton District just to receive some of that education and additional training. The other program I want to mention before we close it out is the Manufacturing Awareness Program. This is a program that was created in partnership with the CRDC, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Eastern Iowa Community College to launch a 100% online, no cost, free 25 module series focusing on manufacturing skill sets to include OSHA. We got logistics in there, we got packaging and shipping, and we got information on there regarding just some basic manufacturing type skill sets that they need. Again, no cost, 100% online. And it's not just open to those college students, it's open to high school students, people who are already in the manufacturing sector and just want to beef up their skills. And most importantly, maybe those that were displaced from careers in food service or hospitality due to the pandemic, and they have to pay the bills. So they're looking for a new career. Again, that's the Manufacturing Awareness Program by Eastern Iowa Community College. And if you have any questions regarding that, please let me know. Enrollment is simple. We've successfully enrolled approximately 80 students throughout the district. They're moving forward. We have some high school students. We have some stay-at-home parents that are looking to go back out in the workforce. So again, the Manufacturing Awareness Program. I want to thank Tom, Darryl, and Gary for taking the time today to kind of school us, pun intended, on what's going on in your districts, giving us your outlook for 2021. Again, thank you for all you've been able to do in response to the pandemic. I don't envy your positions, but you guys have done a great job. So on behalf of the Clinton Regional Development Corporation, on behalf of everybody that's watching this broadcast, thank you very much, and we'll look to have you on the show again soon.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
All right, everybody. I'm Andy Sokolovich from the CRDC. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.